A blended family in Georgia seems to be navigating life with the same struggles many of us face. Then tragedy strikes when the family's 5-year-old wakes one morning to discover a horrific scene inside the house. As investigators dig in, an unlikely suspect emerges, shocking everyone involved. My name is M. William Phelps. I'm an investigative journalist and the true crime author of close to 50 books. I've dedicated the past 20 years of my life to helping families of the missing and murdered. Join me. We're crossing the line. Blended families are, today, kind of a common part of everyday life. A piece of American fabric normalized, perhaps, by the 1970s hit television series, The Brady Bunch. Two people meet after divorce. They both have kids, head off into the sunset to raise their newly formed family together. It's a loving response, in most situations, to what could have been a more traumatic event for the kids in both families. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Tyrus Carrollton Road in Carlton, Georgia, is one of those country roads in the state where you'll find a small ranch house next to a massive farmhouse set against hundreds of acres of land separating the two. Some of the driveways, made up of gravel or dirt, are so long you cannot see the homes they lead to. And most residents in that community like it this way. A little over 50 miles west of Atlanta, out at the 1500 block of Tyrus Carrollton Road, the Patrick family lives in one of those modest ranches surrounded by trees and a bit of land. It's the perfect little house for 45-year-old James Brock and his wife, 41-year-old Kristen Brock, who are raising two kids together, James's 5-year-old girl and Kristen's 16-year-old daughter, Sarah Grace. Well, like James is your typical doting dad and stepdad. He has a shaved head, brown and gray mustache, and one of those bushy, long goatees you could roll into a point. Kristen sports dirty blonde hair, brown eyes, a warm country smile, and, in all the reports I have seen, comes across as a loving, caring wife and mother. The two together seem content, happy, grateful for meeting, and being able to blend both families and move on from whatever troubles they'd had in past relationships. The way it should be. Which is, I should say, an indication of the humility and kindness the couple together bring into the household. It is, I think, in the end, what most people are searching for. A simple life, unencumbered, no drama, just an opportunity to begin again. Hitting reset on life is something any one of us can do at any time. And the Brock family, now blended and working together, seems to be embracing that change in a purposeful manner. They attend church. They work hard. The kids go to school and bring home solid grades. Neighbors wave and smile. The simple things a country life seems to offer suits them all very well. On February 19th, 2025, James and Kristen put the 5-year-old to bed and then head off to sleep themselves. James had suffered massive heart failure in 2024 and has been recently put on the transplant list for a new heart. He uses a heart machine at night to keep his heart functioning as he sleeps. Everyone in the house is aware of the sounds the machine makes, which have become, by now, second nature. It's the alarm on the machine that everybody is not used to hearing. And when it goes off, they are all aware that something is going on with James. According to published reports, Kristen has been feeling what is described as mounting pressure of late. Not only taking care of her husband, working and taking care of a 5-year-old, but she's been having issues with Sarah Grace, the older teenage daughter. Perhaps it's just normal teen mother disagreements, but nonetheless, Kristen is feeling the weight of the entire situation these days. It's been a lot to deal with. Sarah comes across as your typical teenager, seemingly recording her life and posting it on social media. Sometimes she'll post something a bit too personal, it seems, and then delete the post, as her mother contends that Sarah is becoming harder and harder to reach on an emotional level. Teens today, I don't have to tell anyone, have a difficult world to navigate socially out in a place where their lives are completely put on display. As life appears to be going on what is a normal course for the Brock family, on the morning of February 20th, the youngest child, the 5-year-old, wakes up and does what she does every morning, run into the master bedroom and, I am just assuming, being a parent myself, jumps onto the bed and say good morning to her stepmother and father. Yet not long after heading into that bedroom, she comes running back out screaming for help. Her older sister, Sarah, wakes up and demands to know what is going on. Soon, Sarah heads into the bedroom herself and realizes, according to published reports, that both her parents, James and Kristen, are dead. They've been violently murdered while they were sleeping. Sarah calls 911 to report what she has seen. James Brock and his wife Kristen have been shot multiple times. It's a bloody scene, graphic and horrific. When investigators arrive on scene, they of course question the kids. We must take into account at this point that the house is a very small ranch inside. 1 floor. The rooms are close together. I think all of us have been inside of a ranch at one time or another and can appreciate just how close quarters this really is. Outside, there is not a lot of noise pollution in this area, other than maybe an owl or maybe some wild animal lurking in the night and howling. So you would think gunshots would ring out loud and wake up the entire house. They asked the 5-year-old if she heard anything. Yes, she says, she heard several gunshots going off during the night. Sarah, the 16-year-old, says no, she did not hear any gunshots. But she thought maybe she did hear the alarm on James's heart monitor go off at some point. Teenagers, I guess, can sleep through just about anything. We all know this. But multiple gunshots inside the house, a house that small, at such close range, I think it would wake everybody up. This is, obviously, a devastating loss for the families of James and Kristen, not to mention the 2 children living in the house. You go to sleep on a normal night with parents, wake up the next morning without. That is beyond shocking to a young person, especially a 5-year-old. During the funeral for both of these wonderful people, and this will become vitally important later on, I want to play some tape here, which might be hard to hear in spots because of the audio, but I'll sort it all out as we go along. And I want to make a point here. It can become problematic to gather a complete picture of a situation from just audio. Not being there in the moment, when the atmosphere itself can be charged and you feel in the air what is happening, doesn't really come through in just an audio clip. But I think it's important to hear this particular audio and to try to understand it.
For those of you who do not know me, my name is Sarah, and I'm Kristen Brock's daughter and James Brock's stepdaughter. This isn't easy. I don't know if I need to do this all the time, but I'm really happy I get to do this. But just bear with me because I stutter a lot. I just wanted to say goodbye to my mom and Jamie since we never got the chance to. I was so used to you guys always being here to the point that I never once thought to imagine y'all not being here. I didn't have a single clue how much I needed y'all until now. For James, thank you for all the life lessons you taught me and for being the best, honest dad ever. Your heart will finally be healed in heaven and neither of y'all will be in any pain anymore. Although that gives me so much comfort, your fight was not supposed to end there. And for my mother, everything we went through does not define what kind of person or what kind of mother you were. You were a beautiful, kind soul with so much gratitude and so gosh dang strong. And you taught me so many life lessons, and some that you just recently taught me were through the letter you sent to James in 2018. When I first read it, I smiled and I cried, and I got chill bumps. But every single time I read it, it puts me to a lot of peace.
Now, that is Sarah, who seems to step up as the oldest of the family now and honor her mother and stepfather. She comes across, we could say, sincere and traumatized by what has happened. Let's just listen to a bit more.
Eventually, all the pieces fall into place, but until then, laugh at the confusion, live for the moment, and know that everything happens for a reason. I can choose to let it define me, confine me, refine me, outshine me, or I can choose to move on and leave it behind me. Always, Kristen Brock. Considering that gave me so much closure, I want to remember them for who they were and not what happened to them, and be happy for the time we got to spend together and not sad about the time that we don't. I may always and will always be her sunshine, but she will always be my star from up above. And I know at nighttime I can go and look at Mama and Jamie in the sky, and gladly they will save me a seat in heaven like they saved for me. I'm sorry. Gladly they will save a seat for me in heaven like they saved a seat for me in this very church. Although there's nothing we can do to bring them back, we still have control over how we treat people with us today. Therefore, when someone tries to tell you anything, no matter how important it could be, just listen, because you never know when it's somebody's time to go.
Just to clarify some of what Sarah said during her eulogy, if it was hard to hear, quote, "You never know when it's somebody's time to go." And her voice cracks there with tears streaming down her cheeks. Sarah is a pretty girl, and that word in this situation applies, girl. She comes across younger than she is here during this funeral. She also comes across honest, down home, a country girl. The way she is dressed, the way she sounds, the way she looks, it's almost as if she could walk off the stage after giving that eulogy and into a field meadow of wild flowers and hop onto a tractor and just sit. Which might sound melodramatic, but it is actually what she ultimately does. She goes on to say during the funeral, "I just want to say goodbye to my mama and James since we never got the chance to. I never once thought you wouldn't be here. I was so used to you guys always being here to the point that I never once thought to imagine you not being here." Picture this. Sarah is standing at a lectern on a stage wearing a light blue dress, her long flowing straight blonde hair parted to one side as she struggles to get these words out. She seems mortified that the road ahead will not include her mother and James. Her life and that of her 5-year-old stepsister has just been ripped out from underneath them in an instant. Let's go to the end of her eulogy now. And I am skipping through a good chunk of it, which is just too hard to hear in the recording I have.
You could say goodnight and wake up a few hours just to find out they aren't there to spread their joy and their love. So just listen and never take a hug or anyone or anything for granted and love with all that you have in you like they did. And lastly, my take on not taking people for granted, I want to thank my family. And last but not least, I want to thank Tasha, Bree, Nate, Lane, Kimberly Hayes, Kim Bowling, Katie, and most of all, my father, Angie, and Ben for making such a big difference. Jamie and Mama would have thanked y'all too. I love you guys, and so do they. I'm sorry.
What is it that you notice about this speech Sarah gives? For me, the ending sounds more like she has just accepted an Oscar or some type of award during a school ceremony. But an Academy Award, I think, is a better description, as you'll soon understand. For investigators, they come across publicly as being baffled by these murders, a random home invasion in what is a generally safe area of the country where not much of anything happens, and two adults are murdered while they are asleep in their beds. Yet, without saying anything more, investigators do have their eyes on one solid suspect they are not saying much about. Sarah had said during that eulogy to James, "Your heart will finally be healed in heaven, and neither of y'all will be in pain anymore. For my mother, everything you went through does not define what kind of person you were or what kind of mother you were. I'm glad they will save a seat for me in heaven like they saved a seat for me in this very church." That's pretty deep stuff, but also perhaps quite telling. We've all heard this saying, life can be unpredictable. It's a phrase lots of people use. I think it becomes plain and mundane within a tragedy. Because, well, of course life is unpredictable. How could it not be? Think about it. That is the essence of life itself. Despite the everyday routines we all have, the changing of the seasons, watching our families grow and succeed and fail, we don't know what tomorrow will bring. It's the natural course of being human. Sarah goes on to say during her eulogy at one point, "You never know when it's somebody's time to go. You can say goodnight and wake up in a few hours just to find out they aren't there. Then, I love you guys. I'm sorry." As Sarah continues, it gets very uncomfortable for some in the room, as she seems to carry on and on before ending the eulogy as a kind of homage to her friends, listing a group of people in her life. But then again, who are we to judge a 16-year-old who has just lost her mother and stepfather to such a horrific tragedy? Nobody truly knows how one might react or respond. A few days after the funeral, Sarah takes her emotional response to the murders onto TikTok and begins to use her parents' deaths as a way to communicate with what is now a growing social media audience. And she soon brands herself an influencer, one of those words I utterly and fervently despise. Somebody with an iPhone and a social media account, we are led to believe, is now a person who influences other people simply by posting random nonsense they deem important? What the hell is that? Are we that stupid and needy at this point in our evolution that we need influencing by people who have nothing to give but pedestrian advice about random topics? Teachers, writers, artists, iconic heroes from history, caring adults in our lives, and mentors influence us. Not some teen or 20-something on an electronic screen flipping their hair around, or some jock in a gym telling us what to eat or how to work out. Can't we call these people something else? I mean, I have a few names in mind I'll keep to myself, but my goodness, how desperate have we become? Let's take a break here. I think I might need it myself. When we come back, we'll take a look at how Sarah responds to the double murder of her parents and how law enforcement begin to hone in on their number one suspect and put the pieces of this terrible, terrible tragedy together. Be right back. Head over to patreon.com/MWilliamPhelps and sign up for my free content page, where I'll be interacting with you, doing live streams, posting exclusive content, and dropping a major limited series podcast exclusively for Patreon members. That's patreon.com/ patreon.com/M. William Phelps. patreon.com/M. William Phelps. After the murders of her mother and stepfather, Sarah Grace uses her TikTok page to, one would assume, after watching these video posts, express her grief and sadness, which is something I can understand. In one post, with a piece of rather ominous piano music playing, while using a video of her mother and stepfather from the previous year, Sarah writes this: "They don't know it, but a year from now, me and my 5-year-old sister would find them wrongfully shot dead in our home and won't get to watch me graduate high school, see me walk down the aisle, and couldn't even say goodbye. I miss you guys. Save a seat for me in heaven." In another post, she writes, "But at night when there's nothing to do and the house is empty, I'd always think about how much I needed them." Words written over a picture of her mother and stepfather kissing in the kitchen of the house. Along with a website URL for a GoFundMe page, Sarah then posts, "Don't ever take your family for granted. That voice you once thought was annoying is what you may end up falling asleep to every night, and the only way you can hear it again is over video. It's just not good enough. I want my mama." Then she posts a series of selfies in which Sarah seems absolutely destroyed, crying and crying, many of them displaying mascara running down her face, set against some of the more popular sad songs of the moment. "Feeling so tired, we're falling apart," Sarah lip syncs to in one video post, her face contorted with obvious streams of tears running down her face, and again, her mascara dramatically running like watered-down ink coursing down the front of her face. "Been through hell," she writes over one picture of her on the ground, knees to chest, screaming out in agony, crying, one hand on the door into her room. The next picture in the same deck, she is smiling, twisting her head to her right, dressed smartly, one leg kicked out behind her, standing in front of a tree with lights on it. She looks very happy. As time passes, her pictures become increasingly more glam, I'd call them, where it's clear she has done herself up in makeup, spent some time on her hair, and she begins posing rather innocently, but also for the camera, if you know what I mean. She looks 5 years older than she did at the funeral without any makeup or glamorous clothes. She writes over those pictures how anxiety has begun to cripple her, how her body aches so badly from the grief, she can barely get out of bed or even call up the energy to brush her hair. The photos and her words contradict each other. But again, how does anyone respond to grief? We are all different. Is Sarah losing her mind? Is she screaming out for help? In one rather eerie post, she shows her followers a photo of the outside of the house. "Don't go back to our old place," she writes over a mixed rendition of Johnny Cash's song, Folsom, from 1960. "I hear the train a-comin', it's rollin' around the bend, and I ain't seen the sunshine since I don't know when." Those are the words Johnny Cash sings over what are some really strange pictures. It's a very ominous post, scary actually, knowing what happened inside that same house. In a montage of photos dated near February 24, 2025, not too long after the murders, Sarah displays a news article about, quote, "a reward offered for suspect accused of murdering Carroll County couple" by WSB Radio, one of the local stations. That is followed by a series of photos of the house inside and out, with law enforcement cars parked and the house torn apart by crime scene people. There are moments during cases I have learned from my 25 years of true crime experience when a situation pivots. What I mean by that is how, if you study behavior long enough, you get a sense of what is an organic response to what is happening to you and what is a manufactured response some people think they should be presenting. People respond to sudden death differently. Kids certainly differently than adults. Expressing yourself online for a child can almost be therapeutic, I think, to a certain extent. It is how kids choose to express themselves today, letting their community know how they are feeling moment by moment, how their life is unfolding day to day. A video diary keeping everyone within their fold in the loop of what is happening, especially when a life has been ripped apart in an instant. It's a testament to our times. Share everything. Allow the public into your world, be it suffering or healing, joy, laughter, depression, or grief. Sarah writes in a post how she and her mom wore matching necklaces every day before, as she puts it, everything happened. Her heart, she adds, is broken and she is afraid to take her necklace off. I will love you forever, she concludes that thought. Her mother's necklace, Sarah writes, which her mother, Sarah says, in her words, passed in, will be given to her little stepsister. Early in life, Sarah says, she and her mother struggled, so much so her mom lived off ramen noodles to support her, and she can no longer thank her for that because she's gone. Then she makes what I can only describe at this point is an interesting series of posts on TikTok. Now, keep in mind, the photo behind these posts is that of her and her mother. Her mother is smiling, looking directly at camera, but we can only see the bottom half of Sarah's face, and she's sticking her tongue out at the camera. What I mean by interesting is the wording. Quote, "When I had to go back to that house, it ruined my mood." She goes on to say it made her shake really bad and feel so sick for days. She ends that thread with, "I still talk to both her and James because only them understand the true me." Her mom was her one true inspiration, Sarah goes on to post, "the dazzling woman from whom I received my name and my life's blood." I don't know if she ever realized that the person that I most wanted to be was her, she concludes. Those words are in front of a photo of her mother and James and what looks to be two urns with their ashes and a lime green, yellow, and white bouquet of flowers. Who is the true Sarah? I wonder this myself. One of the more crushing aspects throughout the entire duration of grieving the loss, she seems to say in another series of posts, is how she can't stand the fact that she cannot go home and see them. Quote, "I'm like in a horrible mood that never ends." And on top of everything, I still have no answers. I'm so confused on how someone could have done this and even more confused on why. Why them? And then she writes, why that? Sarah then begins talking about that day. She says she went to bed around 12 a.m. that night. 10 to 20 minutes before falling asleep, she says, she heard her stepdad James's heart monitor alarm going off. But then she says this, "I was already really tired and I wasn't hardly even able to hear it due to my TV and my brother's TV and my heater, plus my door was barely cracked when I went to bed." Remember, she says she did not hear a gunshot, but her young stepsister says she did. So one might look back at what she just said, okay? I was already really tired and I wasn't hardly even able to hear it due to my TV and my brother's TV and my heater, plus my door was barely cracked. So she's kind of lining up why she didn't hear the gunshot. She's giving an excuse. Sarah graduates from high school during the spring of 2025, 3 to 4 months after the murders. By then, she is reaching out to a true crime social media person with a large TikTok following and encouraging this person to look into the murders. She says she wants those answers. As investigations of this magnitude go, no time has really passed. 4 months. That's nothing. I understand that most people who watch true crime on television and listen to podcasts might feel that murder investigations move swiftly. We tend to gloss over time when we create this kind of content. But murder investigations take a long time and a lot of resources. Warrants first need to be written, then taken into a court, signed off by a judge, after the prosecutor has given his or her stamp of approval. Phone records need to be pulled. Forensics need time to process evidence. Labs are always backed up. New cases keep coming in, budgets, etc. So it can take a year before the answers investigators think they know already actually come in. Still, the investigators in this case here have an idea of what happened, and so they begin pursuing their suspect with a warrant in early July 2025. And that suspect, I think you might have guessed by now, is Sarah Grace. I'll be right back after a final break.
Of February 20th, 2025, deputies with the Carroll County Sheriff's Office responded to a tragic scene at 1531 Carrollton Tyus Road. They discovered the bodies of James Brock, 45, and Kristen Brock, 41, both deceased from apparent gunshot wounds. From the very moment the 911 call was received, a relentless investigation began, one that would span months, consume thousands of man-hours, and require the full weight of the local and federal law enforcement agency partnerships. Today, we can confirm that an arrest has been made in the case. Kristen Brock's 17-year-old daughter, Sarah Grace Patrick, has been taken into custody and charged with 2 counts of murder and 2 counts of aggravated assault in connection with the deaths of her mother and her stepfather.
Sarah actually turns herself in. The arrest, of course, shocks this community, not to mention the families of the victims. I'm not even going to try to explain how the arrest will ultimately affect the 5-year-old involved, a young girl who had, I assume, looked up to her older stepsister. So, with this arrest, if one goes back now and looks at all of that TikTok activity by Sarah throughout February, March, and into the spring and summer, along with what she said during her eulogy, it takes on a new significance. And look, Sarah has been accused of this, not found guilty. So she is presumed to be innocent. But looking back at her social media activity, it is kind of bizarre how she went from a teen spiraling deep down into a well of tears and desperation, even talking at one point about dialing 988, the suicide hotline national number, and then glams herself up and starts to call herself an influencer, contacts a true crime social media content creator, and her posts seem to become more bubbly and almost have this gloating air about them. And then I keep going back in my mind to that statement she gives about the TVs being on and being loud, the heater being on and being loud, and her door not fully cracked open. Those are details I'm not sure people would recall at a time like this. It's very hard to gauge what is going on in the mind of a child, especially one accused of killing her mother and stepfather while her 5-year-old stepsister sleeps just feet away. This will become important as this case moves forward. The motive here will also become a major factor. Yes, prosecutors don't need to prove motive. We know that. But motive here will drive the narrative of putting this case together for a jury. The prosecution here will need to offer an explanation of the why part of it all. My guess is, and it's just a guess, if Sarah is behind these murders, there was some sort of repeated denied request, meaning Sarah wanted something from her parents, and they just weren't budging. In her TikTok posts, there is an element of attention seeking, whether she did this crime or not. But then we could say that about most TikTok influencer types. that it's all about the attention. If Sarah is guilty, and again, she is presumed innocent, could this case show us how social media itself is now influencing the way in which emotion and psychopathy are becoming intertwined? What do I mean by that? I mean, was a murder committed to gain followers? Right? A murderer is on social media. This murderer thinks, maybe I can get away with this crime and draw sympathy from an audience, and my followers will go skyrocketing. That's what I mean. Speaking through her grandfather after her arrest, Sarah says she's innocent. Also, we might see additional arrests. The public spokesperson for the DA and Sheriff's Department has said, I suspect we will. Would be hard for a 16-year-old child if she did this to pull it off on her own. And that part of this investigation is probably rooted in the weapons used in the commission of the murders. Where did the weapons or weapon come from? I do suspect Sarah to mount some sort of self-defense or some other darker defense strategy once some opportunistic defense lawyer, seeing a play at media attention, gets his or her hooks into Sarah. I get the feeling these days, scabby criminal defense attorneys are lurking out there online like buzzards, circling a carcass, watching for which murders turn into high-profile cases so they can jump aboard to build up their media presence. That is the sad state of affairs I think we are seeing unfold. Can you imagine defense attorneys out there online gauging which crimes, which murders get the most media so they can swoop in and I'll do it pro bono, right? I'll do this for free. And then they come out and they start to present this wacky ass defense strategy. The other thing that is really getting under my skin is what I'm seeing lately is this. Defendants are hiring public relations media companies. Why? So they can control the narrative, so they can put out false narratives. So this case here should be one to watch on many different important social levels and legal levels, notwithstanding the devastating effects on the victims' families. That's it for this week. Be safe, be aware. Sources for this episode include 17-year-old girl charged with murdering mother, stepfather. Atlanta News First staff, July 8, 2025, Atlanta News First. Georgia teen accused of killing mom, stepdad, posted TikTok videos for sympathy. Richard Polina, New York Post, July 11, 2025. Sarah Grace Patrick arrest warrant affidavit. And Sarah Grace Patrick's TikTok page. Crossing the Line is executive produced by M. William Phelps, LLC, and Matthew Valentinas, Mom's Basement Management. Written by me, M. William Phelps. Audio mastering and mixing by Matt Russell. Music by Epidemic Sound. Original music written and performed by Thomas Mooney, Tom Phelps, and Matt Russell.